Hello and I. Now, if you follow me on TikTok, then you know I've just stumbled across the whole fact that not only did humans mutate, but animals mutated, crops mutated. Not only that, but new civilizations, money, cities, the structures, all of them in the same time period, all including with the invasions, so the colonizations, etc., the spread of the steppe people, all in the same time period, all in the same 5 to 10,000 period of periods, yeah. So not only did we see new color skin, so new physical traits, new hair traits, etc., we also saw cows, we saw chickens, we saw cats, dogs. So these animals that we think are Asian, etc., no, they had their original, right? And then the same engineered splice pattern that we see amongst humans is also in the animals, is also in the crops. Everything that we now are so reliant on was spliced and engineered too. How? Okay, so the climate excuse for humans. They say pale skin, light eyes, lactose mutations, all because of climate pressure after humans left Africa. The Ice Age story is less sunlight, less vitamin D, humans evolved paleness to survive. The problem is the last ice age ended 12,000 years ago, right when all these mutations supposedly began to explode. So if the cold caused it, why didn't pale skin show up in the hundreds of thousands of years people supposedly lived in cold Eurasia before that? The stress excuse for animals. So dogs, sheep, pigs, chicken, cattle, all domesticated in the same post-ice age window, 12 to 5,000 years ago. Science says domestication stress rewired their neural crest cells and gave them floppy ears, pale coats, and docility. That has nothing to do with climate. It's a lifestyle mutation cascade dressed up as stress. But why would stress consistently produce pale coats, floppy ears, and docility across unrelated species? Because when it comes to the cows don't look like how the original cows don't look like they do now, with all those color patterns, even the spotted patterns and all of that. Original cows were dark black, dark brown, huge aurochs with huge what do they call it? What's those things? What do they call them? You know what I'm talking about. The horns, that's it, yeah, with large horns. Okay, so, and then also with dogs, right? Dogs all of a sudden have all these different colored patterns, etc. Pigs have different colors. They're lighter with curly tails. Why all of a sudden? And they're all now much more easily managed. The wild animals are ferocious. These ones it's easy to domesticate them, but they try to convince us that this was nothing to do with engineering or splicing, when the same genes found in dogs are the same genes found in humans that were switched off and given the same mutations. So the same genetic pathway that creates the switch for blue eyes to show up in humans is the same genetic pathway that shows up in dogs and other animals too for blue eyes. How does that make sense? Okay. The contradiction. Humans, new traits equals climate. Animals, new traits equals stress or domestication. Same time period, same kind of traits. Loss of pigment, new colors, docility, dependency. They can't use the same excuse for both because it would look too obvious. So they split the story. Humans equals climate, animals equals stress, plants equals selective breeding. but the mirror shows all three kingdoms were altered at once under the same domestication program. If climate was really the cause, then animals should also show the climate-driven pigmentation changes in the wild at the same time, but they don't. If stress was really the cause, then humans in captivity or slavery should have evolved floppy ears and pale skin, but they don't. Instead, all the new variations, blue eyes, white sheep, spotted cats, blonde hair, maize, wheat, appear suddenly right after the flood or ice age reset. So at this point, it's directed intervention, not climate or stress. Now, if they admit the obvious, that humans, animals, and plants were engineered in sync, then pale-coded humans is not a natural evolutionary success, but a domesticated branch. Animals are proof humans didn't do this on their own, but part of a larger program. Agriculture is less a discovery, but more of a rollout. It would mean the entire Neolithic story, which is the whole birth of civilization. You know, they say, oh, we birthed civilization because we brought agriculture. And that's why they always want to say that they are the evolved humans. That's why they say when pale traits came about, they made it look like evolution, right? Then we came with all this knowledge and all these thingy. But we already had our knowledge. We already had our sciences. We already had all of our systems, etc. However, we just didn't have the systems that they created, right? But look at what the systems that they've created have given us today. Look at where we are. We're lonely. We're in poverty. We don't people. Come on, bro. Everybody's just in their own world, in their own zone. It's every man for themselves. Even back in the day, even things just me remembering how it was to be a child, right? Going to play scheme, after school club, or even just going to knock on each other's doors. Or even my mom, we're going to this person's house. There's always a party, always a wedding, always something going on. Even just to chill at cousin's house, people's house. But now, it's like people don't even want to step out unless it's Instagram worthy, unless they got funds in their pocket. Nobody wants people to come round. Everybody's just isolated. Everybody's just trying to make it or look like they're making it, or look like they've made it. If the Ice Age was supposedly too harsh for random colourful mutations, then why did pale humans, white animals, and rainbow crops all pop up immediately after it ended? Humans lose melanin, supposedly, yeah? Pale races emerge 10 to 6,000 years ago. Animals lose pigment, white sheep, spotted cows, pale dogs or cats 10 to 5,000 years ago. One synchronized pigment stripping wave. Chlorophyll equals melanin's plant twin, yeah? Melanin, humans or animals absorbs and converts light, protects from radiation, and governs rhythm. So that's what melanin does, okay? It absorbs and converts light, protects from radiation, and governs rhythm. That's within animals and humans. Chlorophyll within plants absorbs and converts light into energy, drives photosynthesis, governs growth rhythms. So the same thing, yeah? They're literally biochemical cousins, same role, different kingdoms. So if melanin mutations equals pale humans and animals, then chlorophyll manipulations equals pale or engineered plants. Wild grains, such as acorn, teosinte, wild rice, dark, hardy, bitter, full of chlorophyll and protective compounds. And that's how we know that plants don't really want to get eaten, because plants actually give off toxins or that can actually harm you. That's why certain plants you can't eat at all. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So, yeah, domestic grains. That's why a lot of them are supposed to be herbs and stuff for medicine and blah, blah. You're supposed to eat a lot of fruits. Anyway, but obviously plants are good as well, but depending on blah, blah, yeah? Domesticated grains. Wheat, maize, rice. Lighter, softer, sweeter, bigger grains, less chlorophyll, less dense. So that's what domesticated grains look like. Lighter, softer, sweeter, bigger grains, less chlorophyll, and less dense. Who And even in humans, when they strip the melanin, what happens? Pale skin, less dense bones. Remember, pale races have less dense bones than us. The more melanin you have, the denser your bones are. Okay, and then they have and lighter skin. Yeah, so exactly like melanated humans, pale coded humans is strong protective versus softer dependent. Wild fruits are usually deep pigmented. Okay, purple, black, red, green, packed with chlorophyll, I can never say this word right. Anthocyanins, and I don't even know this one. Carotenoids, carotenoids. Domesticated supermarket fruits are lighter, sweeter, stripped of bitterness and medicine. Wild apples equals tiny, dark, sour. Domesticated apples equals big, sweet, lighter. Wild bananas, seeded, tough, dark. Domesticated bananas, pale, yellow, seedless, sterile. Remember, when they're seedless, they're sterile, which means we have to keep farming them, which in nature doesn't create that. Because imagine a world where you would need humans to constantly be reproducing fruits, grains, flowers, etc. What would happen? Say something goes wrong and the whole population disappears, yeah? Except for a few, which always would be the case anyway. Now, if there's no people doing those huge ass farmings or whatever, where are people going to get food from? If now we have no natural wild flowers or wild plants or wild trees, etc., that are bearing fruit by themselves, because now the population that were doing doing the farming and all of this stuff had disappeared. Now what? Now you got a barren earth. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? That's why these little things that people think are little and are minor, actually have a huge domino effect. And it's not to put fear or anything in that, in anyone, but well, only in these worlds anyway, because obviously there's still isolated parts, thankfully, but they're dwindling, man. They're dwindling. So in botany, when plants lose chlorophyll, it's called chlorosis. Yeah, leaves turn pale, yellow, or white, and the plant becomes weak, dependent on extra care. The plant version of albinism or pale skin. It even appears in domesticated crops more often than wild species. Can you imagine? Yeah? So, pigments, melanin, chlorophyll, etc. are antennas to the source. Strip melanin means humans lose cosmic memory. Strip animal pigment means livestock becomes docile and dependent. Strip chlorophyll, plants lose wild survival and are depend on farming. The system literally diluted the pigment codes across kingdoms to sever Earth from source. So wild is original, balanced, rooted in natural law. So black humans, wild animals, untouched plants, original Earth systems, yeah? They survive in harmony, rhythm, cycle, reciprocity. Listen, you know what I mean? To reciprocate, yeah? Engineered is splice, destabilized, commodified. Pale-coded humans, domestic animals, hybrid crops, artificial cities. Survival is forced, not natural. It needs constant management, medicine, cages, fences, rules, surveillance. Every time they domesticated something, they broke its independence. Wolves turned to dogs, from free predators to human tools. Wildcats into house cats, which means they've gone from independent hunters to lab pets. Aurochs into cows, from massive beasts to milk machines. Black humans into pale-coded hybrids, from rhythm keepers to system keepers. Domestication isn't love, it's soft imprisonment. Scientists admit the same things happen over and over when something gets domesticated. Lighter skin, fur or eyes, smaller brains, more submissive or obedient behavior. Fertility but also fragility, weaker immune systems, reliance on external care. That's exactly what the system has been breeding into humans, animals, plants, and cities. What started as survival experiments turned into weapons. New races set up the rule to all expand the system, while originals get colonized. New animals, cows, pigs, chickens, bred to feed billions, but sicken bodies. New plants, wheat, rice, GMO corn or soy. Cheap calories but low life force. New cities, grids, concrete, surveillance, removing rhythm of earth. Everything engineered gets plugged back in. Everything engineered gets plugged back in as a control loop against the originals. The fact it all looks the same. Humans, animals, food, even urban design proves it wasn't random natural evolution. It was a systemic domestication project. And everything they engineered and manipulated is being used to attack us. Because the engineered forms depend on the system, while the originals depend on Earth. And when they want everything earth-rooted, and of course, they want everything earth-rooted erased. So wolves in the wild, almost always golden, amber or yellowish eyes, very uniform. Dogs, domestic, suddenly you see blue, green, light brown, all those 2 different eyes, even grey. Blue eyes in huskies, collies, etc. don't exist in wild wolves. Light brown is much more common in dogs, while wolves keep the piercing amber. African wildcat, usually yellow or golden eyes. Domestic cats range from green, blue, copper, grey or odd eyes. Blue eyes in cats, especially the Siamese or the Persians, are a domestication trait linked to pigment or albinism pathways. In the famous Russian domesticated fox experiment, wild foxes, amber eyes, aggressive. Domesticated foxes, after 20 to 30 generations, blue eyes, spotted cats, spotted coats, floppy ears, dog-like behavior. How? How did they start off as wild fox, amber eyes, aggressive, and then after 20 to 30 generations, they're domesticated foxes with blue eyes, spotted coats, floppy ears, and dog-like behavior? Proof that eye color mutations ride along with domestication. Wild horses, brown eyes, no verity. Domestic horses, blue eyes suddenly appear, especially with spotted coats. Aurochs, dark brown eyes only. Domestic cattle, pale blue or grey eyes show up in some breeds, linked to coat depigmentation. Jungle fowl, red eyes, orange eyes. Domestic chickens, huge range from red, orange or pale yellow, even bluish in some breeds. So, wild animals, consistent survival-based eye colors, amber, gold, brown, red. Domesticated animals, sudden explosion of novel colors, blue, green, grey, odd eyes. These are linked to the same pigment mutations that lie in coats or skins, so the neural crest cell plus the melanin pathway, it's the same. Anyway, which means domestication equals pigment destabilization equals eye color variety. It's the exact same in humans. Original populations, dark brown eyes, melanin rich. After Eurasian domestication or mutations, blue, green, grey, hazel suddenly appear in the last 6,000 to 10,000 years. Fish. Wild carp were brown or grey. Humans selectively bred for color mutations, orange, red, white. Goldfish appear suddenly with traits that would never survive in the wild. The same coat color mutation story as dogs, cats, sheep. Modern farmed species are domesticated and selectively bred in the last 2,000 years. The tilapia, catfish, salmon. New varieties engineered for growth, docility, and meat quality. The aquatic version of sheep or cows. Now, with the waterfowl. So the mallard, the domestic ducks. Mallards are sleek, camouflage. Domestic ducks develop white feathers, floppy body shape, weaker wings. Yeah, again, white again, yeah? Domestication flag. So, the grey-lag goose, domestic geese. Wild geese migrate and survive harsh climates. Domestic geese are larger, whiter, can't fly well, totally reprogrammed. Oysters, clams, mussels, shrimp, domesticated in the last 2,000 years, often bred for size and shell color. Genetic studies show loss of wild diversity, same bottleneck signature as cows and pigs, same bottleneck signature as Eurasians. So, dolphins, not domesticated in the same way, but humans found cooperate naturally with fishing communities in some cultures. Their friendly nature is framed as a convergent with domestication syndrome, smaller brain regions linked to aggression, more social cooperation. So, in the wild, camouflage, strong survival traits. Domesticated, white light coats, docile, often less intelligent or agile, appearing in waves within the same 5,000 to 10,000 year window when humans, land animals, and plants were also mutating. So the same features keep reappearing across species: white or light color, smaller brains, docility, new coat, skin patterns, weaker survival instincts. It looks less like random stress mutations and more like a universal domestication template applied across creation. So, in humans, they say, before I go on, let me see. Okay, we're good to go. So, in humans, they say the climate, cold, lack of sun stressed their bodies, so boom, white skin, blonde hair, blue eyes magically appeared. In animals, they say domestication stress, being caged, fed differently, tamed, rewired their hormone and neural crest cells, so boom, white coats, floppy ears, smaller brains magically appeared. It's the same playbook. Take a massive transformation that looks suspiciously like genetic engineering or hybridization, rebrand it as environmental stress plus random mutation plus selection, then stretch the timeline thousands of years so nobody asks how the same changes pop up synchronistically across humans, animals, and even crops. The funniest part is, stress in biology usually leads to deformities, infertility, or death, not cute new domesticated traits. That just so happened to make animals more useful for humans, such as milk, wool, docility. So yeah, they literally swapped climate stress for humans with domestication stress for animals. Same excuse, different wrapper. They say new coats, colors, floppy ears, etc. came from selective breeding plus stress affecting neural crest cells. Neural crest cells are basically the stem-like cells that form pigment, cartilage, nerves, etc. They admit domestication somehow redirects these cells. So once you add in hormonal or neurotransmitter changes, stress or cortisol, domestication syndrome appears. Floppy ears, patchy color, and smaller brains. So they admit new phenotypes appear suddenly, like entire new coat patterns, color morphs, and body shapes. This isn't just about choosing what already exists. It's new traits arising from destabilizing the genome. The neural crest excuse is vague. They don't say how stress or human contact can rewire pigment pathways to make a white cat, pink pig, spotted cow, or blue-eyed dog. They just say it happens. They tuck it under thousands of years of breeding, but the fossil record shows many domestic traits appear in just a few hundred or even within the Bronze Age, 5 to 10,000 years ago. Way too fast for pure random mutation plus slow selection. So, look at the overlap. Animals, lighter coats, new eye colors, curly floppy features, smaller brains, docility. Humans, post-hybridization, lighter skin, new eye colors, straight or wavy hair, smaller cranial capacity compared to early hominins, docility to systems. This is why it feels like humans were domesticated alongside animals. The timeline matches the Neolithic package, 10 to 5,000 years ago. Farming, new foods, new people, new animals, all rolled out together. So their official line is stress plus picking mutations over time led to cute new traits. Yeah, that's what they're telling us. What it really reads is something about controlling environment plus crossbreeding plus maybe deeper genetic tinkering, flip to master switch in development, producing novel traits across species in the same epoch globally. Nobody explains why the same neural crest shifts appear in foxes, dogs, pigs, horses, goats, and humans. Why cute features, baby face, floppy ears, lighter colors, emerge again and again. Why this accelerates in the exact same few thousand years, 10 to 5,000 years ago. That seems less like random chance and more like a coordinated domestication project of animals and humans. For hundreds of thousands to millions of years, the earth has had melanated humans, wild animals, wild plants, stability. Then, in a tiny sliver of time, 12 to 5,000 years ago, bam, new humans, pale skin, blue eyes, milk drinkers, new animals, dogs, cows, sheep, chickens, cats, horses, new plants or foods, wheat, barley, rice, maize, potatoes, new behaviors, farming, building states and empires. So obviously not normal farming, but the farming that they do today, okay? Obviously farming existed before. They try to explain it with random mutations that just happened to arise around the same time, selective breeding by early farmers, climate pressure from the end of the Ice Age 12,000 years ago, but mutations that should take hundreds of thousands of years fixed themselves in a few thousand. Early farmers supposedly tamed wild beasts and rewired their DNA without modern genetics? Is that what we're trying to believe? Yeah, that early farmers supposedly tamed wild beasts and rewired their DNA without modern genetics. And the same process happened independently on different continents? Okay. So humans were tweaked. Some lines became domesticated humans, paler, more docile, dependent. Animals were tweaked. Wolves turned into dogs, aurochs into cows, mouflon into sheep, jungle fowl into chickens. And when I say wolves into dogs, this is before, so these notes are a bit older, yeah? But this is before I even looked at the African dog. And I saw that the African dog had all the fur colours of a normal dog in it. And I thought, well, they've clearly used the wolves as well to mix and create different breeds. But you can obviously look at the African dog and be like, well, that's a perfect baseline for you right there. So, jungle fowls into chickens. Plants were tweaked. Wild grains into wheat, barley, rice, teoscinite into corn. All became interdependent. Pale humans need vitamin D from milk, so cows appear. Farming needs animals for labor, so oxen appear. Farming requires grain that doesn't survive in the wild, so wheat appears. Yeah? It's like a whole new package of life was downloaded into Earth's biosphere at once. So, the Sumerian tablets, what they say. Gods gave humans grains, cattle, sheep, and taught them farming. The biblical Genesis, Cain versus Abel, shepherd tied to domesticated flocks. Flood myths worldwide. After the reset, new seeds and new beasts were delivered. This wasn't slow natural evolution. This sounds like it was a mass genetic intervention. New people, new animals, new foods equals one event. Even though I'm still trying to figure out what exactly happened and whatnot, but yeah, it's hard because there's just so many theories, so many information out there. But all I know is the things that we do know and the things that are fishy and suspicious alone are just alarming. So, pardon me, sorry. So, the skin color mutations. The SLC24A5 light skin gene, 6 to 10,000 years ago, spread unnaturally fast in Europe. And that's just that by the way, when I say that gene, yeah, that's literally just what's the actual gene that's for pigmentation, yeah. But the actual mutation itself is an add-on on top of that, yeah. But it's long for me to keep writing it. Spread unnaturally fast in Europe, and then another version of that mutation 5 to 9,000 years ago. Then the blue eyes single ancestor 6 to 7,000 years ago. Before that, humans had melanated skin for 200,000 plus years to their records, yeah. The lactose persistence, ability to digest milk as an adult mutation was 7,500 years ago in Europe and Middle East. Coincides exactly with cattle domestication. So exactly when humans all of a sudden became able to, fuck me. But listen, guys, even when I'm speaking on this stuff, it just hits me again. Like, listen to that. When humans in the Middle East and Europe became domesticated to drink milk, yeah. Had got the mutation to be able to drink milk. That's when aurochs and stuff like that were domesticated into cows. Like, what a coincidence. Behavioral domestication syndrome. Smaller skulls, jaws, and teeth. Smaller skulls, jaws, and teeth compared to earlier humans. And the reason why I emphasize on and teeth is because I've noticed a lot of the time non-black people have smaller teeth. Like, a lot of them. And smaller jaws. And, like, that jaw thing that goes in. And even though they'd be, like, making fun of our foreheads and all of this stuff and blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, anyways. Reduced aggression. More cooperative or social. Same clusters of traits you see in domesticated animals. So, dogs. Domestication. Explosion of coats, colors, white, spotted, golden, only after 10,000 years ago. Identical to human skin depigmentation timeline. So from wild aurochs 10,000 years ago in Fertile Crescent, India, new mutations, mild milk production plus docility, same time frame as human lactose gene. So sheep or goats, domesticated 11,000 years ago. Traits, woolly coats, don't exist, by the way, in wild sheep. Reduced horns. Chickens, from red jungle fowl 9,000 years ago in Southeast Asia. New feather colors and combs only appear under domestication. Cats, from African wildcat 9,000 years ago in Fertile Crescent. Coat or pattern or color mutations exploded only under domestication. Horses, domesticated 5,500 years ago. Coat color mutations, white, palomino, or spotted, only appear after domestication. Wheat and barley, wild versions existed earlier. Domesticated forms, bigger grains, non-shattering heads, appeared 10,000 years ago in Fertile Crescent. Rice, domesticated 9,000 years ago in China. Maize, or corn, wild teoscinite, transformed into modern maize 8,000 years ago in Mesoamerica, requires human intervention to survive, can't propagate without us. Potatoes, yams, and sorghum all emerge in the same narrow window 12,000 to 8,000 years ago worldwide. The pattern. Humans suddenly mutate, pale skin, blue eyes, milk digestion. Animals suddenly mutate, coats, docility, milk or wool or egg production. Plants suddenly mutate, larger seeds, easier harvest, higher sugar content, all within the same 12,000 to 5,000 year window. That's not random, that's a global bio reset. Now, myths line up with this. God's gifted humans new animals and crops after the flood. Science calls it domestication syndrome, but I'm seeing, DNA splicing and selective engineering, creating interdependent life systems where humans, animals, and plants are all domesticated together. So, wild types, dark coats, so all the original melanated humans, independent plants existed for millions of years. Do you hear that? We existed for millions of years. Forget what these men are saying, yeah? Forget the science that these men are saying. We existed for millions of years. But then, in the last 12,000 to 5,000 years ago, boom, pale coats, pale humans, docility, crops that can't live without farming. The same traits keep popping up across species at the exact same time. So who benefits? A truly melanated human can live off the land, hunt, gather, move. An indigenous melanated human. A domesticated human depends on grain fields, cattle, milk, and authority structures. And that's what we are becoming as well, Iyaahni, because we're here in their countries as well. Well, not even that it's their countries, but in their systems. We're living in their systems. Once animals, crops, and humans were all domesticated, control over food, genetics, and reproduction is control over civilization itself. Whoever ran this event wasn't just engineering biology, they were engineering obedience. Humans, pale or dependent on sun supplements, milk, and societies. Animals, pale coats, dependent on humans. Crops, domesticated, dependent on farming humans. It's a cascade of dependency where everyone, plant, animal, human, got locked into an artificial cycle. That's why no mainstream scholar screams it, because if you admit it, you admit human domestication is real and not natural. These animals didn't naturally become docile, rainbow-colored fluffies. They were rewired to serve. Humans outside Africa show the same timing and same trait package. The whitening, softening, and dependency wave hit both animals and humans in the same 10,000 year window. So, when they engineered or domesticated animals for empire, meat, milk, wool, eggs, they also engineered or domesticated a branch of humans for empire, obedience, farming, system building. They say early humans picked friendly wolves. Like, imagine if I told you, the reason we've got mini sharks, say all of a sudden now, fast forward 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, we've got mini sharks. You can just buy them and you can have a mini shark in your yard. But this one's not going to attack you, it's not going to bite you, but it literally looks like a mini shark. And then we say, oh yeah, they just were in there, they just started picking off the friendlier sharks. They just started picking off the friendlier sharks and just kept on breeding them until docility. Like, what? And then they made them miniature. Like, what? And now they have all these different colors and stuff, and they do all these new cool tricks, and they've got human-like faces. Like, what? Anywho's, so they say early humans picked friendly wolves and bred them. Over time, this produced floppy ears, curly tails, spots, and tameness. The problem: wolves don't carry floppy ear or curly tail genes. You can't select traits that don't exist. These traits appear suddenly as if a switch was flipped. Even the famous Russian fox experiment in the 1950s, selecting only for tameness, produced floppy ears, curly tails, new colors within 20 to 30 generations. They basically admit that one behavioral tweak somehow magically rewires the whole body. That's not selection, that's a genetic cascade. So what they say: humans kept the less aggressive animals slowly shrinking size and changing codes. Problem: wild sheep had hair. Please go look up wild sheep. Wild sheep had hair. Straight hair. How did they get wool? Wool coats appeared out of nowhere. A woolly sheep cannot survive in the wild. They must be sheared. That is not natural selection. That is engineered dependency. Why would you mutate into something that requires you to constantly need human support? What, like, how does that make any sense? What they say about cows: aurochs, giant aggressive cattle, were bred into smaller and tamer. Milk production expanded through random mutation and selection. The problem: no wild mammals produce milk year-round for another species. That's a designed mutation, exactly in sync with humans developing lactose tolerance 9 to 7.5 years ago, 5,000 years ago. Humans plus cow were domesticated together. Horses, what they say: early steppe cultures tamed horses by riding and herding. Over time, different breeds were selected. Problem: coat color diversity exploded within a short period. Archaeologists admit horses shifted mostly from dun or bay to whites, blacks, and patterned coats within a few thousand years. That's the same sudden palate problem as dogs. Chickens, what they say: jungle fowl were kept near villages. Humans preferred those who laid more eggs. Jungle fowl the problem is jungle fowl lay 12 eggs per year. Domestic chickens lay 200 to 300 plus. That's not selection, that's genome reprogramming. Cats, what they say: wild cats started eating rodents around humans. People tolerated them. Over time, tameness and coat variety spread. Yeah, that's what they're saying. The problem: coat variety exploded just like dogs. The tabby, calico, white, ginger, none of which are normal in wildcats. That's another sudden mutation storm. Pigs, what they say: boars were penned and bred for meat, gradually becoming docile and fatter. Problem: curly tails and spotted coats emerged out of nowhere. Again, the domestication syndrome cluster. So, all these changes supposedly come from random mutations that humans selected for. But, by keeping the tame, odd-looking animals, new traits accumulated. That's what they say. The problems they can't explain: speed. These changes happened within thousands, sometimes hundreds of years. Way too fast for random chance. The consistency. The exact same traits, floppy ears, curly tails, collar patches, baby-like faces, appeared in every domesticated animal, even though their wild ancestors didn't share them. You see the face switching. It don't matter if you're black or white. like everywhere, bro. It was everywhere. Crops, plants, animals, everything's just switching. Everything's just, it was literally like the morphing. You know, in the video when he just morphing. Yeah? My God, you guys. Dependency. Many of the new traits make animals less fit for survival. So sheep that overgrow wool, chickens that lay too many eggs, that doesn't evolve naturally. It evolves under control. So their clear explanation is, random mutations happened, humans chose the useful ones, that's it. But the evidence screams it wasn't random, it was synchronized. It looks exactly like directed gene editing. The same way humans themselves show sudden new traits in the same time frame. Why they won't admit splicing? If they admit dogs were spliced, it opens the door. What else was spliced? That's dangerous because the human hybrid question comes next. If they say yes, ancient people engineered animals, then they must explain why humans themselves show the same domestication signatures. To protect the natural evolution narrative, which they love to protect with all of their might, anyway, that's a whole nother story. They frame everything as gradual mutation or lucky selection instead of intentional intervention. So the mutation explosion problem. Wolves become dogs in just thousands of years. It doesn't add up. Dogs suddenly gained curly tails, floppy ears, blue or green eyes, patchwork coats. Docility, less aggressive than wolves. That's way too many mutations happening too fast under natural conditions. Science even has a name for this pattern, domestication syndrome. A cluster of traits that pop up every time you domesticate an animal. Dogs, cats, cows, even humans. That kind of consistency looks less like chance and more like a switch being flipped in the genome. So modern genetics shows you can get floppy ears, coat color changes, smaller skulls, and tame behavior by tweaking neural crest cells in embryos. That means it doesn't take thousands of random mutations, just a few targeted changes, boom, the whole package is changed. Ancient splicing or early bioengineering could have done exactly that. So the humans show the same domestication traits compared to our ancestors. Smaller jaws and teeth, flatter faces, reduced body hair, more docile or social behavior, wild variation in skin, hair, and eye color, just like dog coats. If they admit dogs were spliced, they have to admit that humans were too. That shakes religion, science, and racial narratives to the core. For dogs, they say humans fed wolves scraps, then picked friendlier ones. For humans, they say climate made mutations, then selection spread them. Both are fairy tales hiding the same truth. Directed engineering on the African template. They won't admit splicing because it exposes a pattern of intervention across life forms. The mutations aren't random, they're signatures of design. So wild dogs equals Africa, not Eurasia. African wild dogs split off 2 to 5 million years ago. They also carried every coat pattern you see in domestic dogs today. Spots, stripes, patches, golden, black, white. So Africa equals the source code. Nothing new was invented in Eurasia, just borrowed and repackaged. Mainstream says wolves in Europe or Asia gradually became dogs 15 to 40,000 years ago. But if wolves were dogs, equal dogs was just friendship and food scraps, how did we suddenly get hundreds of breeds with specialized traits, herding, guarding, toy size in a short time? So yet again I say, because I wrote this a bit funny, if wolves, are just dogs who were... Okay, so if wolves were literally just dogs that needed to be given food and scraps to become friendly, how did we suddenly get hundreds of breeds with specialized traits? How? That's selection pressure on steroids. It looks more like splicing and directed breeding. Same way humans went from robust melanated originals into engineered pale hybrids. No new traits, only remixes. Look at the African wild dog again. You already see the whole genetic palette. Europeans never created traits. They took existing African diversity and funneled it through bottlenecks. Every new breed is just deletion, removing traits. Wolf power into toy poodle is weakness. Exaggeration, overbreeding one trait, so greyhound, speed, bullhound, bulldog snout. Remix, crossing bloodlines, huskies and shepherds. Same exact trick as humans, mutation stories. No new creation, just edits of the African origin. So the suspicious timeline. Dogs domesticated 15 to 40,000 years ago, right during the same upper Paleolithic revolution window they push for human hybridization. Coincidence? No. It's the same experiment across species. Take a wild, melanated, fully capable African root, domesticate it in Eurasia by limiting freedom, controlling mating, splicing traits, and call the outcome new. African wild dog equals sovereign, cooperative, colorful, perfectly adapted. Domestic dog, engineered servant, controlled by humans, fragmented into thousands of breeds that can't even survive without human care. That's literally the mirror of how they used hybridization on people. From sovereign humans, into stratified classes of laborers, servants, breeds of humans or empires. Every new Eurasian domestic line, whether human or dog, isn't invention. It's domesticated through bottleneck, splice, and selection of an already divine African rootstock. The dog story is a safe version of the human engineering story. They'll admit it with dogs, but they'll deny it with people. So with all that information that I've given, like all the research that I've come across, my back and forth with ChatGPT and my downloads, like I just feel like there's no way, guys, you can look at the coincidences and be like, no, it's just evolution. It's just the climate. It's just selective breeding. Guys, it's right there. If things don't make sense in a daily life, don't make it make sense in your head. That's why some people are religious, because you want to believe in fairy tales, bro. Look at reality for what it is. What do you see going on right now in reality? How does that make sense? People want to say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're this or you're that, you're that. But then you want to just believe things that make absolutely no sense just because they told you it's climate, it's mutation, and you don't want to do research yourself. But to those that know, they know. Shout out to those that know, and shout out to guys. Thank you. I'm on 200 subscribers, and I know to other people they might be thinking, why are you gas for that? But to me, I just started off on 30 subscribers the other day, so I'm mad gas. I can't lie. So thank you, guys. Hey, keep it coming. Come on, let's decode this thing. They think we're idiots. But we got this. Aye. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and all that good. Drop a comment. Come on.